Hi, thanks for joining me. Very briefly, two production-related things. One is I really need a haircut, so please just disregard my hair right now. I am probably going to get a haircut tomorrow, but I just wanted to make this video now because I just feel like it, and I don't want to wait. The other thing is that it's a little dark in here. I just don't have really good lighting, so the video quality is probably not going to be as good as it could be. But that said, what I'd like to talk about today is anime that is really good and has really bad follow-ups. Normally I like to keep things positive and talk about good things, but today I'm going to give you kind of a twofer. So I'll get to talk about some anime that I really like, and then I'll talk about their follow-ups that I really hate. So I hope that you're looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and get started. First off, we have one of my favorite little OAV series from back in the day, Birdie the Mighty. This is a 4-part OVA series. We have Double Trouble and Final Force, and I absolutely love these. I've loved these since I saw them fan subbed back in the day on VHS. And what I really like about this series is how good the situational humor is in this. It's a simple concept, and I think they execute it wonderfully. You have these two characters, one of whom is just a normal, everyday average Joe high school student boy who is basically killed, and his life is saved by it being fused into the body of this alien like police agent type of person, who's this girl here. So you automatically have that kind of gender swapping like character comedy of the Ranma 1/2 show, but you also have like it's this wonderful situational comedy where his family are all worried about him. They all think he's going insane, just because of like the pressures of high school and taking his college entrance exams or whatever it is that he's doing. But you know, actually he's basically been possessed by this this alien like agent who's fighting like these aliens on Earth. So like he gets caught up in all of these like these intergalactic battles and stuff, and it's just really wonderfully done. Like just everything from, you know, everything about the production of this is great. The music, the cast, the animation, it's all really wonderful, and it has this great understated humor that I just love. I absolutely love this series. Now, the follow-up, Birdie the Mighty Decode. I'm not going to have any of these because they're so bad I don't own any of them. Birdie the Mighty Decode, I don't have the information up, I didn't research these. It suffice to say it came out a number of years after that. This was like from the 90s probably, so fast forward maybe a decade. They thought that Birdie the Mighty Decode would be a cool thing, and I did too, because I love Birdie the Mighty so much. I'm like, yes, they're finally resurrecting this. And I watched, I think, about 6 episodes of it, and I was like, this is trash. Like, it was just, it took everything that was charming and interesting about the concept of the first one, it threw it completely out the door. And all that you were left with was, like, you know, just conflict of like the main character and her intergalactic space stuff. That was it was pointless. Like I didn't care about it at all. There was just, you know, it was just kind of like a simple action series, and it was terrible. I hated it. So I apologize if you like Birdie the Mighty Decode. You know, if you do, if there are some elements of it that, you know, you think are good or whatever, like, let me know. But I just, as a fan of the original, the follow-up, as far as I'm concerned, is terrible, and I would avoid it at all costs. Next up, we have AD Police and Bubblegum Crisis. I'm going to put these together because they basically exist in the same universe. The Night Sabers interact with the AD Police on a regular basis, and the AD Police have some of their own stories here in this OVA series, which these are both excellent series. I highly recommend them if you haven't seen them. You know, they're a little dated. I do think that they may have had a bit more impact in the 80s when they came out, but I think that they're both still completely viable now. The music is stupendous in this, and they're very cyberpunk. So if you're a fan of cyberpunk, these have a really nostalgic, like, cyberpunk feeling to them, and I think they're really great. The follow-ups to these being, I believe it's Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. I could be wrong about that, but it's something like that. And then AD Police, I think, is just like AD. This is AD Police Files. And the follow-up is like, it's just like the AD Police TV series or something like that. I really wanted to like both of those things. I think they're both from the 90s, so basically 90s follow-ups of 80s OVAs. And they were both not good. I think that they're not as, I wouldn't necessarily call them as trash as, say, like Bird of the Mighty Decode. But I think that they rate as below average. Pretty much, you know, other things, like if they get a good, I'm like, it's not great, but it's good, those don't get on this list. Bubblegum Crisis 2040 and AD Police, they're kind of barely watchable. I think that they're like competent in their production, but I watched quite a bit of both of them back in the day, and there just wasn't anything to them. They had no soul. As far as I was concerned, and they were a huge disappointment. If you're looking to go back and like re-experience, or maybe experience for the first time, I should say, some older anime, completely avoid AD Police TV series and Tokyo, you know, Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. Just watch the originals. The originals are great. The follow-ups, not good. Next up, we have All-Purpose Cultural Cat Girl. Nuku Nuku. Now, I forget if I featured this recently. It's been on my mind a lot, and I've actually rewatched it in the past couple of years, because it's super good. And the follow-up is terrible. So, what's good about this is, you know, again, you have a funny concept. I really like the creator, Yuzo Takada. Thankfully his name's in the back here, because I almost didn't remember it, but he's the same guy who did 3x3 Eyes, which I'm a big fan of, and this is quite a departure. So I mean, I think this shows his range as a creator. This is really a comedy, kind of an action comedy, and it's like a family comedy. A lot of the comedy revolves around this boy and his dad, who basically run away from his mom. So, like, they're on the run, and they're kind of fugitives from her in a way, because, like, the father character had married into a family, like a really wealthy sort of dynasty family in Japan, you know, fictionally, that make like robotic weaponry and things like that. So he's kind of this robotics expert, and he ends up making this robot cat girl, all-purpose cultural cat girl, Nuku Nuku. So a lot of the comedy revolves around this boy's mother trying to get him back, and just being this doting mother, and like, well, he and his dad are like on the lam, and Nuku Nuku is kind of caught in the middle of it, and ends up just having a lot of actual like physical battles with these two girls that work for their company, and all of the big robotic you know, machines that they make. It was wonderful. I mean, if you just talking about that premise, it sounds interesting. It's great. The horrible follow-up to that was All-Purpose Cultural Cat Girl Nuku Nuku Dash. Now, the best I can tell, the pitch for that series was that Megumi Hayashibara was the voice of the original Nuku Nuku in this, and she had just done Neon Genesis Evangelion, and Ayanami Rei was and is a popular character from that. And they said, oh, this is perfect. Let's bring back All-Purpose Cultural Cat Girl Nuku Nuku, and we'll make her Megumi Hayashibara's character into Ayanami Rei. And that's exactly what this series is, and it's terrible. It's awful. Again, maybe, you know, there's some of you out there that like that series, and I disagree with you. You're totally entitled to your opinion. But there's just nothing redeeming that I can think about that series. My buddy started getting it back in the day. I don't know if he finished it or not. I know I watched a bunch of it, at least, like, you know, several, 2 or 3 DVDs worth of it anyway, and it just wasn't good. There was nothing interesting about it. It took, again, all of the levity, all of the interesting, like, conflict and comedy and all of those things, just stripped it out, and it was just a bad show. I would recommend completely avoiding that. But if you haven't seen for whatever reason, All-Purpose Cultural Cat Girl Nuku Nuku, highly recommend this. It's like, I don't know, maybe 6 OVAs or something like that. They're really good. Next up, this is one of my favorite animated TV series of all time. And this was a holy grail for me for the longest time, because it took them so long to license and release this. Right Stuff finally did it, God bless them, in, I don't know when it was, 2010. So it's been about 8 years now since this came out. Dirty Pair, the TV series. Now, the movie, the original Dirty Pair movie, the Dirty Pair OVAs are all quite good. I mean, the movie's, it's good. It's not great, but it's good. But the TV series, this is like great, probably excellent. That's how much I like this. It's so good. And it's a little hard to even put your finger on what makes it so good. I watched Crusher Joe recently. One of the Crusher Joe things, whatever it was that I picked up on DVD. I talked about it, I think, a while back. And Crusher Joe is decent, but it's clear that when they did Crusher Joe, it wasn't as strong a concept as the Dirty Pair. And I don't know what it is. They bottled lightning with this series. Oricon, I know, ran into this recently and watched it. I think he would concur. He seemed like he really loved this. You basically just have these two, again, they're like these space cops, essentially. So these two girls, they're kind of young, they're like, I don't know, 19, 20, something like that, kind of hotshot, probably fresh out of the academy or whatever, and, they're these, what's called trouble consultants. So they're going around the galaxy, like, solving these problems when, like, the local authorities aren't enough. They call in the 3WA to come in and fix whatever is going on, stop a conflict, a war, some person of royalty is kidnapped, or some really important incident. And the thing with the Dirty Pair is that their code name is the Lovely Angels, but when they get involved in solving these cases, most of the time things go terribly wrong, and there's a lot of collateral damage. And usually it's not their fault, and they end up being kind of exonerated, and they're able to continue doing their jobs and going to the next crazy thing. But yeah, there's something about the way that the whole thing is executed. Again, it's based on actually a novel series. I have the novels that they have released here. They've translated and localized a couple of the novels. Novels are decent, but again, I don't know what it was with the TV series. They absolutely nailed it with this. It's so entertaining, it's so much fun. Kei and Yuri are like such a good duo, they have such good chemistry. Like the situations they get themselves involved in are so much fun, and it's just highly watchable. It's like, it's this older, it's this 80s sensibilities. Honestly, the 80s aesthetic of it is stupendous. If you like, the sort of the Ready Player One, like kind of 80s nostalgia, aesthetic that I think some people have, some people crave now. If you're into that, like Dirty Pair has that in spades. The music, the opening and ending themes and everything, they're just wonderful. The TV series, I would say, is just some of the pinnacle of 80s anime that was ever produced. And the follow-up, that was an unbelievable disappointment and an unmitigated disaster of the proportion that the Dirty Pair would be involved in, is Dirty Pair Flash. Now, this is something that I saw, when it came out, and I don't know that I was quite as negative about it when it came out as I am now, because it was more Dirty Pair. I was, interested in anime at the time, and I hadn't seen a whole lot of things. Dirty Pair Flash came out, and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. But, as the years have gone on, it's grated on me more and more, because I realize how much of what is good about the original Dirty Pair television series. I believe 6 OVAs that they made of Dirty Pair Flash, completely stripped out. You basically, all that was left was you had Kei and Yuri, who had different personalities. They were actually seemed much more at odds than they are in the TV series, even though they are oftentimes, like, they have kind of a rocky relationship. In Dirty Pair Flash, they seemingly just like hate each other and don't get along. And they do have like that big damage and sort of collateral damage kind of thing going on, but it's just there's nothing interesting to it. I think in the 90s there was more demand for anime, and so I think maybe just to meet some of that demand, they decided to make a Dirty Pair series, you know, and I don't think that that was like a bad concept, but in execution it was terrible. I would not recommend that you guys watch Dirty Pair Flash. There's basically nothing redeemable about it. You'd be better served by watching pretty much anything else related to Dirty Pair, but especially the TV series. It's one of the greats. And last up, I guess here, because we've been going on for quite a while, because I like to talk, is Tenchi Muyo. Now, this is the original OVA series, Tenchi Muyo Ryuoki, and I love this. It created the harem genre in a lot of ways. Maybe there was some harem stuff like previous to this, but a lot of the sort of like tropes of harem anime and things like that kind of start with Tenchi Muyo. Tenchi Muyo, though, is wonderful, again, because of the kind of I think the production environment in which it was created. You know, OVAs were expensive, and they got to have bigger budgets, and they got to push the envelope, and people had a lot of freedom to do whatever they wanted to with it. And so they made a really funny, I don't know, kind of sexy, like just interesting comedy, you know, or harem comedy out of this, with a lot of sci-fi elements. Basically, it's in a lot of ways a sci-fi action series that just happens to have like a lot of romantic comedy to it, and it's super fun. If you haven't seen Tenchi Muyo for some reason, good gosh, you should watch that. But what we're going to talk about is follow-ups and spin-offs, actually, to Tenchi Muyo. And to tell you the truth, most of them range from good to great. Tenchi Universe, I would say, is at least good. This is kind of a retelling of Tenchi Muyo Ryuoki, the OVAs, with, you know, just kind of some expanded stuff. It's a full-length TV series. Definitely the production values are not as good, but it's fun. It's definitely at least a good series. Then you have things like Tenchi in Tokyo, which I watched in its entirety a handful of years ago, finally, and this is quite good. I would say this is sort of like good verging on great. This I remember liking quite a bit as a follow-up to Tenchi Muyo. And then you get spin-offs, and I won't go on at length, but suffice to say, I did finally figure out why there was such a divide in the original OVA series with a particular OVA called, it's something to do with Mihoshi. It basically has the first appearance of the character Pretty Sammy, which is Sasami from the show, transforming into a magical girl. And they made a whole magical girl series out of it, which is also excellent. Actually, it's excellent. This is really, really good. It's probably one of my favorite anime TV series that I've seen. And the divide was actually with at the original Japanese studio. The creator of Tenchi Muyo didn't work on that OVA, and I'm assuming probably didn't really like the character of Pretty Sammy. So whoever else it was that worked on that, I think like that particular OVA was disowned by like AIC and the original creator. So it's kind of the neglected child, but you know, you can still get it on like a Pretty Sammy DVD that includes the Pretty Sammy OVAs, which are actually quite good too. And then you get Tenchi Muyo Galaxy Police, and this is really good. In fact, this is so good that I really think it's probably the best thing that they've made since the original OVAs. I really enjoyed this series. There's that one or two episodes that are bad, actually, in this. Like, they really dropped the ball in, like, one episode. It just got so annoying. But for the most part, like, the bulk of this series is absolutely great. Which brings me to Tenchi Muyo, War on Gemini. I almost think there might even be another Tenchi Muyo spin-off that's coming up, but a handful of years ago, War on Gemini was coming out, and I was so excited about it. I ran out, I bought it on Blu-ray, there were like 2 volumes of it, and I watched it, and it was awful. It was so bad. I turned around and I sold it immediately. And I remember at the time, my thoughts were basically that it pretty much suffered from every bad thing that you could possibly like have that's bad about anime now. There are a lot of good things about anime now, and there are a lot of good anime that come out now. But when people talk about like bad things about modern anime, I think they're talking about Tenchi Muyo War on Gemini, where really you had, you know, it was this harem comedy, but it had such a weird feeling to it. Like each episode was sort of made where you could tell where the budget was. You know, it seems like it kind of had a low budget. So like you had these action scenes where there was maybe more budget and like things looked better. Then you had the regular scenes and like it was super pared down. And you know, some of that is just okay. Like, that's how things are. Like, I can deal with that if the story and the characters are good, especially the characters. But in this, like, the characters weren't good, you know? The whole harem aspect of it wasn't really fun, you know? And it seemed like they really had, like, okay, here's the story action episodes, and then we're gonna have, like, okay, here's the goofy, like, episode where we get all of the panty shots, or, like, you know, they all go to the beach, or something like that. And, I mean, the original OVAs kind of had that, too, but somehow it was, like, it was fun, and it was unexpected, and it wasn't, like, so rote. In Tenchi Muyo War on Gemini, again, it felt soulless. It felt by the book. It felt really tropey, and it was bad. Honestly, it was just bad. So I would recommend that you completely avoid War on Gemini. Watch any of those like series that I just showed. They're all so much better. And I guess that is it. I hope that this was enjoyable, and I hope that you'll join me again for more anime and video game related videos. And if you like this, please thumb it up, and please consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys again. Take care.